Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of three opinionated guys with mics and too much free time. Strong enough to stop a speeding movie rumor, more powerful than a bad comic book event, able to waste hours of time asking stupid questions to people who have better things to do. It's Dave, Ben, and John. It's Superhero Speak.
Hey everyone, you're listening to Superhero Speak, and I'm your host Dave.
And John.
And this week, boys and girls, we have two very special guests with us. The first of which, this is his third time on the show, because we just can't get rid of him.
You guys just love me.
And then, of course, I'm talking about James Schumacher, the third, and he brought with him a new artist he's working with. You guys may have heard of this guy before. Maybe not. And that is Ken I know I was going to mess it up.
Knudsen.
Ken Knudsen. How you doing, sir?
Good. Nobody ever can say it or spell it right.
Well, considering Dave's penchant for messing up names, he never had a chance.
No, not at all.
Jesus. Oh, the worst part is you literally asked him a minute ago, how do you pronounce your name?
I know. I'm not going to live this down, am I?
Yeah, it's Knudsen. No, it's Knudsen. It's like, damn. It's like, I thought I had a hard last name to pronounce.
No, well, see, you had a famous Schumacher to help you out, though.
No, I did not. Don't you consider Joel Schumacher famous.
He's like your uncle, right?
Oh, damn it, Ken.
Really? Let's talk about that.
Oh, God.
That sounds more interesting than the questions I had.
All right, so, like great guys, like twice removed from my family, but everybody that's in my family that's met him are not a fan of him. I was like, is that because he fucked up Batman, or is that because he's just weird? Like, no, it's a lot of things. When you, as the director of Batman, have to apologize numerous times over the years, that's usually sad.
Yeah.
But we're not here. We're not here to talk about your family tree. We're here to talk about of Devils and Men.
Woo! Yeah. What do you want to know about it? Besides, it has an amazing artist on it, and then there's little old me going, hi.
So, well, I mean, I guess the first question is, where did the idea come from?
Devils and Men, its initial onset for an idea kind of came when I was in the year after my mother died. And I was doing this isolation tank because I was super depressed and I couldn't figure out what was up, what was down, and equally what was left or right. And I caught a Joe Rogan podcast where he was talking about, like, isolation tanks. And I was like, okay, cool. So I listened to it with my girl. And then I was like, you know what? I should probably try this. And at this time, I was so depressed. I went from, like, being, like, 180 pounds of the six-pack to upwards of 250 pounds. So I was like, okay. So I floated inside this tank. First tank went great. It was awesome. It was kind of this relaxing environment. And then it was on the second time I did it, which is like a 3-hour-long float, excuse me, that I had this image kind of pop into my head of a train, like hauling ass through this wasteland. And I came out of the tank, and the next day it kind of all just kind of unraveled. And before my mother had passed away, I would always do stories that were about, like, a cool idea or a cool concept that, like, would pop into my head. I'm like, that's cool. Let's just do that and see what happens. And then after my mother's death and after this flotation tank and after, like, the people that I consider very close to me kind of helped pull me out of it, that I changed my mindset on how to create. And I decided to do a Western. And I decided to take that image I saw inside the tank and actually create it into a script. And over 3 weeks after the float tank, I wrote the first draft of the script, sent it out to a bunch of friends, and a bunch of people were like, holy crap, this is incredible. And it kind of just came out of me searching for a reason and a why to the pain that I was really going through. And Jesus, too many books in my head. Of Devils and Men comes a lot from that. It's birthed from that pain.
Cool. And then, so how did you and Ken hook up on?
I'll let Ken tell you that one.
Okay.
Very recently, we were both at the Long Island Comic Convention, EternalCon. And I'm from Long Island, New York. Okay. He was out visiting and getting car problems and awful hotels.
Yes, that's an understatement.
This is the biggest Long Island. It's great. I've done it since the beginning. The guys who run it are awesome. So I'm there the first day, and James is not there. He'll explain why, because, he's coast. But the next day, I introduced myself, because we're both there super early, because when I'm ready for a convention, I'm ready for a convention. All my stuff's set up, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to draw. So this year was the best convention I've ever had with these guys. It was packed, the crowd was flowing, we were in a prime spot, everything was going great for this weekend. And throughout the weekend, when the waves of people would pass, I try and introduce myself to the people around me. It makes it a little more interesting, more fun. It's nice to have, basically a buddy sitting next to you.
Right.
I'll say, some tasty beverages helped that along, but,
Yes, it did.
I wonder what you're talking about there. I don't know.
Chocolate milk.
Well, yes, of course.
James, I'm asking him what he's working on next. He asked what I'm working on next. So we started, comparing notes. He had said, all right, we'll pick this up after the convention. Basically, when he called back, he's like, it was one of those, let's see how serious we both really are on this. So he rolled me through the basic plot points of the story. I happen to love Westerns, especially the Westerns that have all been out now. And if you haven't seen Hell or High Water, fucking go see it.
Oh, I want to see it.
It's another Western that Nick Cave is involved in.
Guy's a fucking genius.
He sent me the scripts. We worked on some concept art together, and now I'm halfway through the pages to get ready to pitch for our Kickstarter. And I'm having a blast doing this.
All right. So while you've got the mic, and James has been on 3 times. This is his 3rd time, so we've done this to him already. Let's go back a little bit. Have you always wanted to has art always been something you wanted to do?
Yes. Since I can remember, whether it was coloring books or tracing illustrations or comic books. I remember, because I'm a little old, I remember people handing me comic digest, basically reprinted smaller digest size, but it was black and white. Mm-hmm. So I'd sharpen up the crayons even for that, really sharp, and color that in. I've always loved drawing, always.
Cool. And so then, how did you get involved actually doing comics? What was your first comic that you worked on?
Well, throughout high school, I was one of the smart guys. I took 10 AP classes in high school, 5 in my senior year, none of it art related. So when my teachers were like, so where do you want to go? I'm like, I want to go to art school. So one of my friends that I was working with at a movie theater, he had gone to School of Visual Arts in New York City. Klaus Janson teaches there, Walt Simonson teaches there, John Paul Leon graduated from there. So I'm like, I checked it out. I loved it. I'm like, that's what I want to do. So I went through that. After I graduated, a couple of my buddies, we made our first trip out to San Diego, and I had what was at the time the art for the first issue of my comic. My monkey's name is Jennifer. That I was looking to pitch around.
Okay.
And when I got there, the first 4 editors I showed my stuff to said the same thing. Like, I feel like I've seen this somewhere before. So I'm thinking, fuck. I don't know if you guys have seen this comic yet. It's a cute story about a little girl and a monkey, and the monkey's crazy because it's a male monkey. So this little girl treats him like a sister. She calls him Jennifer, puts him in a dress. They have tea parties with animals. So I'm like, I'm already anxious about showing this around to what I thought was a superhero convention, and I'm like, there's someone else already here with this? So the 5th guy I talked to saves my life on this. He's like, oh, this is the thing Peter David reviewed. Now, Peter David is one of my favorite writers, and I had seen him at this shitty convention in New York the month before. Like, he was sick, he was leaving early, and I'm like, Mr. David, I'm a huge Aquaman fan, I love what you're doing, which is true. Here's my first issue of my comic. If you could look at it and give me any feedback, I'd really appreciate it. He's like, yeah, sure. He never got back to me, but he was writing the column in Comics Buyer's Guide. Mm-hmm. And it was their edition of giving it away for free at the convention, and they just asked him to review things. So he reviewed a movie, he reviewed a newspaper strip, and he reviewed my comic and ran the first 3 panels. That's nice. What I've never seen something like this before. It's crazy. I wish everyone could see it so they could form their own opinion. So like, oh, that's great. My buddy Jerry and I were like, this calls for a celebration. So we were pretty battle damaged the next day. And we roll back into San Diego Comic-Con, and it's not the way to do it because I was ready to melt. I get to SLG Publishing, who I've loved with Milk and Cheese. I like Nora. I like John Hobbs Maniac. Their booth was ginormous, had tons of titles I never heard of. Everyone was talking to people except this one guy. So I stagger over and I'm like, can I have your submission guidelines, please? So I was not in a good condition.
Mm-hmm.
So he looks at me, he hands me the guidelines, because a lot of the companies have specific things they're looking for.
Right.
Basically, it's them saying, please don't show me Batman pages because I can't do anything with it. So he looks at me, he hands me the guidelines. He's like, well, I'm Dan. I'm the guy that owns a company. I'm going to look at this at some point if you want to show it to me. So I hand him my portfolio, and he instantly starts laughing because Dan loves this. So, we talked for like another 20 minutes. He asked me to remail it to them because they get deluged with submissions. Mm-hmm. And within the next 2 weeks, we talked. We set a timeline. I was excited. They're like, yeah, we'll release one issue because I had 6 ready, 6 planned.
Right.
So like release one every 2 months. I'm like, awesome. He's like, we're not going to start until you have the 4th one in the can. I'm like, well, that sucks because I'm ready now. Spoiler, I was not ready now. Because he knows we suck. On the deadline for the 6th issue came out, I was working full time and I was doing this all myself. I hit a wall. Like for 2 weeks, I couldn't do anything. So I just barely made the deadline for it. So it was very much a learning experience, and probably probably the happiest I've ever been is working on that because everything worked out.
Huh. How did you feel when you found out that Peter David grabbed your book and reviewed it?
My stomach dropped just as low as my jaw did. I was like, and then we immediately raced over to the booth where they were being out. We read it. I introduced myself to Don and Maggie. Actually, were at the booth that night. They were excited. I was excited. I made sure to bring a beverage to Peter the next day. He's been very helpful with helping me promote the stuff too, which goes a long way because again, I was being very sincere when he's saying he's one of my favorite writers, particularly with Aquaman. So it means a lot when one of your idols is willing to go that route. Same thing with both Klaus and Walt from school. I consider them friends now, where I can call them at 2 a.m. if they're still up and talk over pages and stuff. They both went a long way to helping promote it too.
Cool. Yeah, I just I think something our listeners should be aware of that's definitely right place, right time kind of a thing, right?
Yes, because I spent probably, I want to say 2 months getting to that point.
Right.
And drawing it and getting it all ready. So, it's a ton of legwork. So when the right time, right place thing comes in, you're ready to go for it. Yeah.
Cool. So you're, James shared some of the pages with us for, of the upcoming book, and you definitely have. I'm trying to think what the style is. It's a very artistic style. It's the only really way I can put it. More fine art than comic book. Is that something you chose?
That's very true. Going to SVA was nice because I was torn between that and the Kubert school. SVA, first off, was a 4-year accredited school. Not that means anything.
Right.
But I took a lot of fine art classes, and one of my biggest influences was a drawing teacher, John Ruggieri. He's someone, that mentored, I mentioned him before, John Paul Leon. He's one of my favorite artists. Him, Sean Martinborough was in those classes. You could see there's very much, it looks fine art, but man, there's some strong drawing underneath. So when I look at their stuff, particularly, or Dave McKean, or Ted McKeever, or, all those guys, Bill Sienkiewicz, there's strong drawing underneath it, but yeah, it's very much a distinct, very fine art style.
It was like when I first met Ken, and then I literally, because he was to the right of me at Eternal Con, and I looked at his artwork, and it was like somebody ripped the idea that I had for Devils and Men in my head right out of my head and put it on the page. I was like, shit. Like, holy Christ. Because Ken's got a very unique style and a style that is different than 99% of comic books out there. Because like everybody tries to go for the cleanest stuff, the cleanest lines, cleanest panel setups, the gutters, all that shit. Ken's not you look at Ken's artwork on My Monkey's Name is Jennifer, his time on Wolverine, and it's got a very unique style to it. And then for Devils and Men, it lends itself really well for an apocalyptic story. A story that is literally set after the world ends. And you can go the route of like having a clean story. Everything's just perfect and neat. Mm-hmm. But when you look at Ken's work, he gives you, like he said, there's art, there's like emotions underneath it, and you can see it. It's something that I haven't seen. And when I saw Ken's artwork, I was like, shit. And then I perused his website, and my favorite comic series of all time is Dread. And he did this amazing fucking Dread picture, and I was like, crap. Holy crap, this is fucking phenomenal. This is one of those things where you're like, you look at something and it connects. And I was like, great. That's why I was like, okay, let's see what he says. Like, we did the whole thing of testing the waters, where like, let's see if they're interested in doing something like this. And then the pages that you guys have seen, when I got those from Ken, I just sat there, I was like, holy shit. I was like, dear God, this is like looking at the story in front of me. And that's what I absolutely love about his artwork. And that's what attracted me to having Ken on this project. Because like Inheritance when we did Inheritance was like clean.
Right.
And it was as clean as we can get it to kind of like try to like kind of push the limits on clean artwork. And then for Devils and Men, that style wouldn't work because it's too clean for the apocalypse. It's like the difference is almost like Star Trek versus Star Wars. One's a decayed, destroyed future, and everything's like glued together, and the other one's like this slick, pristine kind of look. And it's the same principle for these two stories. But it's incredible because Ken's got this innate ability, and it's so simple when you look at somebody's face to know what they're thinking without having to have a damn dialogue balloon or a narration bubble on it. Because I feel a lot of artists, a lot of writers, and a lot of creators in comics tend to spoon feed everything to people. Like, they're not willing to let the reader kind of like figure out the gaps in the middle. To go, okay, they get this much and this much instead of giving them the whole damn thing.
Right. No, and that's one of the things that struck me about your style, Ken, is I mean, you can take any artist in the industry that's working for the big two, they'll give you a picture of Batman or Spider-Man and has very clean lines, and yes, it'll look like that character, but when you do something a little different, like what you're doing, it's a little more artistic, there's definitely more of an emotional impact to it. Is that something that's important to you with your work?
It is, and it's funny you mention that because I've been reading comics since I was a kid, and I still read, my guys from Marvel and DC, Spider-Man, Batman, my boy Nightwing. The titles I look most forward to is anything coming out of Image. And it's a whole range. Like, I look at everything Rick Remender is writing. He's got artists from super clean and cartoony, like Deadly Class, all the way to my favorite.
Hello?
Did we lose Ken?
No, I'm here.
How?
Did you start vacuuming or something?
Are you in an airplane? James, that was loud.
What was loud?
You. Something that sounded like you were in an airplane.
No,
sounded like the Concorde.
It's the U.S. government. It's tracking us right now.
Oh, okay.
Dang pesky CIA. I mean,
Hashtag Illuminati confirmed.
Yes.
All right, Ken.
Back to the interview.
But yeah, it's nice and it's important when people say that, like, you could see the emotion through it because that's definitely what I'm kind of going with.
Right. So that kind of brings me into a question I did have with Wolverine. You did work on that for a little bit. What was it like going in with a style like that when that's not usually something you expect from Marvel?
It was nice because the assistant editor that brought it all together, Aubrey Citizen, has loved Jennifer since it first came out. Mm-hmm. So he was excited. I went to the office. I got to meet him for the first time, because we communicated since basically the comic came out. He was excited. The writer wanted to work with me on his own self-published stuff, so he was excited for me to work on this. And it was part of like this whole love stories. And he's like, "Don't worry, Ken. It's got Nazis in it. It's good. It's good."
Oh yeah, that's guaranteed.
And then I found out one of my favorite colorists was going to color it. I was like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "Yeah, this is great." But yeah, I mean, they were A-okay with how I drew it. I asked them, like, am I penciling this? Am I penciling and inking? They're like, well, yeah, you're doing it all, right? Pencil and ink? I'm like, sure, that sounds good. So yeah, it was very, very difficult, very intense.
Because you had actually too, you had mentioned earlier when your other book first got picked up, you weren't prepared, because because the idea of deadlines. So now you're working with Marvel, and I'm sure they have a much stricter, deadline policy.
Yes, but they were very impressed when I first came into the meeting because the writer gave me the script ahead of time.
Okay.
Like, all right, guys, I have thumbnails for the book, for the story. Here's what I'm thinking. And they're like, oh, this is great. Thanks.
So, are you going to pick up any more work over at Marvel, or do you prefer doing independents?
I prefer everything, a little bit of everything, and that's something that's nice. Where the work for Wolverine, Jennifer. I've done some art exhibits where I'm getting to be involved in a lot of stuff, some movie concept and storyboards. It's nice as an artist to be refreshed like that.
Cool. So, what is the story for Jennifer? Where did that come from, and what is the story behind it?
Well, my buddies and I, when we graduated SVA, we thought we were going to do superhero submissions because everyone was getting hired right out of school. Mm-hmm. Then Marvel was going bankrupt every 2 minutes. And long-time fans weren't getting jobs because both Marvel and DC underwent a huge change where they started being more specific in the art styles they were looking for. So a lot of guys were out of work to begin with, so it was hard to even break in. So they all have ideas for a self-published thing. I had nothing. I go home one day and I'm a little bummed. So I put it on TV and The Simpsons is on. It's my favorite episode ever. It's the one with Mojo, the helper monkey. So I'm watching out. Look for someone with a monkey and he'll be angry. So as someone who the art comes much more easy than the writing does, now I had to figure out backwards. I'm like, all right, I won't draw an angry man. Why would he be angry? I'm like, because a little girl is putting him in a dress, and now he's neutered and declawed, and the parents bonk him on the head. So in the first issue, the cranky monkey and the girl are on the swing set, and the girl gets kidnapped by evil scientists, and he decides he has to go and save her because if he comes home without her, the parents will bonk him on the head more. And they go.
So you had motivation. That's good.
Exactly. Yeah.
See? That's one of the other things that I really, really appreciate and love about Ken. Is Ken thinks outside of the box, way outside of the box. You just look at my monkey's name is Jennifer, and you see a guy who's unafraid to take the risks and the chances on something that's never really been done before, and it's holy hell. Not that many artists these days, not that many creators these days are willing to kind of look at the box and go, fuck it, and just destroy it. And just figure out, how could you take that box and turn it to a trapezoid? How could you turn it into a sphere? And that when you look at its art, it's phenomenal. It does that so simply. And it's what I strive to do with all of my stories, with my comics, my films, the novels that I'm writing. It's let's push the limits on what is considered possible. Because too many people in this industry are stuck in the dogma of people who have come before them, 20 years before, 30 years before them. And they're afraid to kind of get outside of the realm of what they see. Because when a lot of people see comics, they see a lot of superheroes. And you feel that you have to kind of fit within that realm. And you have to fit within that box in order to do it. And there's just this kind of sadness. Do you see with a bunch of these creators where Ken's gone to cons, I've gone to cons, where you see people trying to just make Batman, a different version of Batman. Right. And it's like just create something different. Figure outside of, I get this a lot where, and Ken's is one of the biggest points where it proves my point, which is, you see a lot of guys go to these cons and they do prints of other people's intellectual property and they do their own spin, and you hear a lot of their responses to that is, it's the only way I can get people to come up to my table and look at my stuff. But if you saw Ken's table and you saw my table, people are very hungry for original material. Right. For stuff that they've never seen before. Everybody's become so sick of the reboots of everything from comics to novels to movies. Everything is just in this constant state of reboot, and it's beginning to drive people insane.
I was going to say, speaking of making prints of other people's work, the movie theaters these days, they just keep coming out with, let's remake this, we'll remake Jungle Book, sure. It's like you said, it's funny too because creativity is hard.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest problem is the money problem, which is, for the theaters specifically or the studios that they want to make money. They know they can make money with another Spider-Man reboot because they'll make a certain amount, and they can count on that. And taking doing something creative, taking a chance on something new is hard. And the more business is involved with it, the less creativity you're going to see.
Exactly. And that happens a lot. But even then, you're starting to see the independent markets beginning to flex their muscles and kind of get away from it. I mean, the system, if you look at the box office numbers for this past year, it's gone down. Everything is going down rapidly because everybody's becoming sick of it. And the only way people are going to be able to stop it is to, for lack of a better term, vote with their money. Okay, I'm not going to come see this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to give you money so that you will eventually get to the point where you're remaking Gone with the Wind, or you're remaking any Sergio Leone film, or you're remaking Stanley Kubrick stuff. Because if we keep going on this route, it's eventually going to get to that point where because everybody's so afraid. And it's very true, but I always tell people that we have to hearken back to the golden era of both comics and film, where it was no one had any idea what was going to stick, so they created, and if it stuck, it stuck. If it didn't, they pushed it aside and did it again. And out of that kind of turmoil where you're like, this is going to work, and you push it out there, that's where the greatest stories like Aquaman and Dread come from. Is it comes from people going, what haven't we seen before? What can we tell? How can we tell a story in a different fashion other than a guy who's allergic to a green rock saving people?
Well, a non-pathetic Aquaman, that's new.
Yeah. It's like, how could we...
He's always been non-pathetic. Don't make it Peter David on this, all right?
Oh, yeah.
Having said all of that, I look at one of my favorite movies this year. It was The Lobster. It's on Netflix now. I'm begging everyone to go check it out. Basically, it's set in this weird alternate British future because it feels very British, where Colin Farrell, if you're over a certain age and you're single, you get shipped to this hotel where you have X amount of days to find a mate, or they bring you into this room and change you into an animal because you're done. It's with him, Rachel Weisz. It's fucking brilliant.
Wait, you had me at Rachel Weisz. Really? She's in this? I have to see this now.
It's so good. So awesome. Having said that, I cannot wait to plunk my dollars down for that Magnificent 7 remake.
Really? That?
I can't wait.
It couldn't possibly be good.
I will.
Denzel Washington, Chris Pratt, yes.
We keep cutting you off, man. Go ahead.
There are exceptions to the remake rule. Very rarely. And it's usually done by people that have extreme reverence for the material before. Because Magnificent 7 looks incredible. And I just forgot the name of the movie. 3:10 to Yuma was amazing. Yes. If people have reverence for it, then it could work. And then you're not pissing off the established fan base, and you're pulling in new fans. Because it's this idea of I know they've been trying to, and it's under Michael Bay's movie production company, which is weird. I don't know how it's going to work, but he's trying to remake The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, come on.
And it's like, okay, cool. Good luck.
I think you almost said The Burbs. I'm like, all right, I'm down.
The Burbs.
Yeah, but I thought Sci-Fi already did that with Birdemic.
Oh, God. that movie's a drinking game.
Oh, it is.
It's like anytime there's a panning shot that misses the car, and it's every shot. It's like it's panning, following this Mustang, and the Mustang's going 5 miles an hour, and the cameraman misses it. And you're like, how the fuck did you do that? What are you doing? But that,
I was going to say that's what Birds is going to look like. It's going to look like a CGI. Sci-fi fest. They might as well just put a giant shark and a robo crocodidator in there or whatever the hell they're up to. Who the hell does?
And a Sharknado?
It's make no mistake. Michael Bay is a phenomenal director. This is a guy that directs 17 cameras at once. This guy,
all filming explosions at the same time.
And American flags.
Yeah, it's slow motion and like on a telephoto lens swooping in and shit. It's just, but he makes those movies, and he's said it numerous times. It's like, I make movies for 12-year-old boys. So
Except his best one, Pain and Gain.
Yes, I loved Pain and Gain, and that was a movie he was trying to make for a long time.
He went to the new Transformers unless he got that made, and Mark Wahlberg is like, yeah, I'm down with that.
Hell yeah. And that happens a lot. You have no idea how many times. Like, to get the new Riddick made, Vin Diesel's like, well, you want me to come back for Fast and Furious? I think it was like Fast 5. He's like, you need to greenlight Riddick. He's like, it's the only way I'm coming back. And so the studio's like, shit. So they're like, all right, you got it.
Yeah, but it's Vin Diesel. They're going to make money off of it. That wasn't a really hard decision. It's not like, well, you'll have to, it's not like he said, well, you're going to have to remake Plan 9 from Outer Space with me.
Kind of funny.
Well,
As awesome as that would be.
To make the last Nolan Batman, Nolan's like, well, you want to do this? Yeah, whatever. Make Interstellar.
Yeah. It's like, and that's usually how a lot of it goes, where, especially in film, and I'm from a film background, you have to literally make concessions to get your next project off the ground. And you see a lot of these films, like Gattaca. Gattaca is my favorite sci-fi movie. And because I dig it. And I should say a realistic sci-fi movie, so I don't exclude Star Wars. They're amazing movies like Alien.
Sunshine. Where are you?
Sunshine's incredible. But in order for Andrew Niccol to make Gattaca, he wrote The Truman Show. And his Truman Show was a lot darker than the one we got. And Jim Carrey came and was like, hey, I want to do this. So that jumped the budget up. And this guy, Andrew Niccol's like 35 at the time, and he's like, shit. Because it jumped it up from like $40 million to over $140 million. So the studio's like, yeah, let's have a meeting. So they brought him into a meeting, and he's talked about it in interviews. And he kind of anticipated something like that was coming. So he had a backup plan. And he's like, you guys want me to step off The Truman Show, right? They're like, yes, but we also want you to rewrite The Truman Show to fit more of a comedy and fit more of like Jim Carrey style. He's like, great, I'll do it, but I want to direct another movie of my choice. And they said, okay, you're a first-time director, $25 million is your budget, not a penny over, go figure it out. So without Andrew Niccol leaving The Truman Show, we wouldn't have Gattaca, we wouldn't have Lord of War. So that's another person where you have to give concessions, especially as a film director where you realize you're not going to be directing A-listers out the get-go. You're just not, because the studio's got to like be able to bank on your name and go, this guy knows his shit. Because the majority of guys, and the reboot of Fantastic Four proved it, where a lot of guys get ego, and a lot of guys go on the greatest thing ever, and they think they understand it, and they just botch the entire thing, and it falls apart. It's like James Wan. He's directing the new Aquaman, and he's directing the Mortal Kombat reboot. And God. He's like, we are going to take our time on everything. We're not going to rush it out. We're not going to just spit on it and go, great, it's done. He's like, no, we're going to figure this shit out logically before we even touch storyboarding. And he's like, and he's the guy that did The Conjuring and The Conjuring 2, which I think are some of the best horror films of recent times. And you see, it's a guy who understands the genre and understands how to shoot stuff and direct things and tell a compelling story. And he's a huge fan of Aquaman. And he's like, this is the first time we're really going to see Aquaman on the screen, and we're not going to fuck it up.
We hope.
This is one of the guys that I think is actually going to do it justice, because when he did Furious 7, the most recent Fast and Furious, everyone's like, oh, he's going to suck because of the guy that did Saw. He knocked it out of the park. And the studio said, okay, we're going to give you like $50 million to direct the next 2 Fast and Furious movies, and he turned it down. He was like, nope, I'm going to go ahead and go do The Conjuring 2. And then he was able to negotiate to get Aquaman because he didn't want to get stuck in a franchise. But now if he does Aquaman so damn good, he's stuck in a franchise.
Right, exactly.
So, dude, if we lose you, it's going to suck.
But then if he does Aquaman good, we hope he stays with the franchise, because at that point he's probably like, he's some kind of god for having been able to make that work.
Well, it's like right now DC needs somebody like that to come in and go, okay, let's stop the tailspin. Let's stop what's happening, because Marvel is trouncing the ever-living shit out of DC in the movies right now. So bad to the point where DC Comics is tweeting at people going, "We didn't direct the movies. We just make the comics, guys. We're the comic guys."
Yeah, but
put that down the middle.
I thought that was Wonder Woman was for stopping the tailspin.
That looks so good.
Patty Jenkins, she's directing.
Amazing. My only concern was, so did Suicide Squad, and then he watched it and I was like, oh God, what is this?
Yeah.
I was like, and then the rumors people are hearing, and it was the same rumors people heard for Ghostbusters from editors going, this is a bad movie. The rumors are starting to kind of come out about Wonder Woman where it's like,
no,
it's another bad film.
That rumor got shot down.
Okay, good. If that got shot down, perfect. I just think it looks incredible. The trailer looks incredible. It's like, shit, a badass woman. My girlfriend's like, yes! A woman that's like, is dressed sexy, but is not like, hey, look at my boobs. Look at my ass all the time.
It's more like, look at my sword.
It almost feels like they're giving us a Sigourney Weaver for comics. Like, here's a badass woman that is sexy and alluring, but can kick your fucking teeth in. It's like, you're my kind of girl.
So that's what we're hoping for, a Bruce Timm portrayal of Wonder Woman, where she's like the best hand-to-hand combat person in the entire DC universe.
Yeah, that was it was one of my biggest complaints about Batman v Superman, was above the Martha moment, was that she just felt tacked in there. It was like, let's throw her in there, and she becomes this like seductive woman who just appears and then begins to fight, spoilers, Doomsday. And you're just like I remember sitting in the theater and people were just like sighing, going, ugh. Like, I remember it cuts from Doomsday and her running to like 20 seconds later, she's got her lasso wrapped around him. I'm like, where did that go? Why did you show me that shit? Instead of Lois Lane taking the rod of like kryptonite that Superman literally got and throwing it away from him.
Yeah, so she could go back get it later. Well, if you saw the Nostalgia Critics review of Batman v Superman, they did a whole reenactment of the entire movie. You have to see it; it's hysterical. But the way they portrayed Wonder Woman was every couple of scenes she would just walk by the screen going "hello" and then walk off.
Well, there's a growing lack of originality in a lot of things, and it's heartbreaking because you're seeing genuinely talented people feeling like they need to paint within a box and paint within the confines of what people tell them. And the indie markets are where everything's beginning to thrive and beginning to kind of push out. And that's why you're getting a growing number of fans that are kind of like leaving a lot of these franchises. It's like the Transformers franchises have gone down because people are like, I'm going to go over here. It's the same thing with a lot of DC movies, is like the first week it's great and then it just downfalls because there's literally no reverence given for the material and no one is giving a shit about it.
Yeah.
But then you see Marvel movies and it's just knocking out of the park left and right because it's paying a certain bit of reverence to the stories while expanding on it. Like the new Civil War is one of the greatest, to me, one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. It's just, holy crap, by the time you get to the end of it, and they're fighting, you're just like, shit. Because then you don't know who the hell to fight for. Like, should I fight for Batman? Or not Batman, Captain America. All this DC talk. Or should I fight for Iron Man? And you're just like, holy shit, this is an incredible kind of moment. And all that comes from the originality of, like, the comics that did that. So when Ken and I set out to kind of create of Devils and Men, we kind of wanted to do something very similar and kind of pull people into a story unlike a lot of comics can do. Because not that many people are doing what Of Devils and Men is. And, I mean, Of Devils and Men is set in the 1880s. And it's all about this great cataclysm that takes out the entire planet. And then it brings these denizens, these creatures, literally are emerging from this hellfire that's consumed the world. And they're hell-bent on killing the last bits of humanity. So people that have survived from different areas have kind of like pulled up into this town and they've jumped onto this train, and this train is hauling ass through this burning wasteland with a carpet of death kind of chasing it. Not kind of chasing it, like literally chasing it. And that train's running out of fuel. And then you're stuck inside this train with people who really don't like being around each other, but people that have also suffered from a great amount of loss and how that can actually like alter and change people's perspectives of each other. That's something that that I don't feel exists in comics that much these days. No one's really taking a grounded approach to these stories. It's like, okay, when I approached Ken, I was like, is this something that interests you? Telling like the truth of this time frame, of not like shying away from the violence and the horrible racial tensions that existed in the 1880s, not shying away from like people's rebelling against authority with gunslingers and all this shit. And Ken was like, nope. I was like, okay, great, because then we can actually approach this subject from a certain sense of truth. Because that's a lot of things are lacking truth these days.
Right. So, then what is your guys' plan for the book? You had mentioned Kickstarter. So what's, going forward at this point? Where are you guys at, and where are you, what are your plans to get it done and get it out?
Well, currently I'm like, I don't know. I was trying to think of something funny. Nothing. Damn it. My humor went away. Currently, we just decided on a date. We're going to launch the Kickstarter campaign. It's going to be at the end of August. Where's my clock? Where's my little thingy?
End of September, I think.
Yeah, September. Sorry. Sorry. Thanks, kid. It is the end of September. I'm pulling up the date right now because my computer doesn't like me because it's a jerk. Now we're all quiet.
Dead air. Quick, think of something stupid to say.
Yes. September 30th. And Ken will actually be at New York City Comic Con on the East Coast, which is an amazing comic convention. And then he'll be there talking about Devil's a Man and like doing all of his normal artistic stuff. But it was the idea of like Ken and I both wanted to kind of bring of Devils and Men to people, almost in a grassroots kind of format, and Kickstarter does that really, really well. It doesn't require you to do like focus groups or like panels. It goes, okay, let's take this to the people, and the people will then begin to spread it around. And that's something we kind of wanted to do because Devils and Men, like both Ken and I's previous work, is very personal. And it's that personal story that we inject into it that kind of bridges the gap even more than just escapism material and pretty artwork and good storytelling and amazing and all that kind of stuff. It gives people something in the story that they can see themselves within. A character, it could be a character, it could be a piece of clothing, something that connects to somebody in their life. That's one of the greatest ways of doing that. It's like they always say music does the same kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We wanted to approach of Devils and Men in that very same fashion, of giving people an emotional connection to it.
Cool. So, since you're going Kickstarter, that means you guys are going to be self-published.
We don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
We're still debating, figuring it all out. Because that's something different. That's a different beast. Is the Kickstarter is going to go phenomenally well, and we're going to get a bunch of fans will begin to kind of engage with the material and kind of build it. And it could get to the point where it begins to run over the ability, almost like an out-of-control train, for lack of a better term. Kind of runs away. We need a publisher to kind of come in and kind of help like bring it together, and not bring it together, but kind of bring it to the masses even faster. Because that is the cool thing about Kickstarter is you're very capable of creating a groundswell that is so big if you can get it that far that you're just like, holy shit. Because you go from like going, okay, this is going to be great, this is going to be awesome, and you're expecting, because you always go into these things expecting the worst. No matter what anybody ever tells you, that's usually what everybody says, because you're always like, yeah, okay. But you do it right, you do the artwork, which is incredible, the story, which is amazing, if I may say so myself. You do all that right, and it connects to people. And then it just kind of moves, and it does what My Monkey's Name is Jennifer did for Ken, and what Inheritance did for me, which is it kind of just creates this momentum, and you're just like, this is awesome. And it's just like, that's one thing like Ken talked about a little bit of My Monkey's Name is Jennifer, where he's like, was getting people that were engaging with him and like talking to him about it. It was like, what was it? You said something about like someone was doing a report on you, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of fan mail because I thought it was a great idea to put my home address. I'm like, give me mail. I want to see mail. And mail me candy, so people mail me candy, and I ate it because I'm trusting. I heard from a couple people that, it's nice, and I heard this from the writer from Wolverine. He's like, women like your stuff because you don't over-sexualize things, which is good because it started a little girl, but a big thing for him and getting me onto the Wolverine job was like, when you drew that little girl, in the first panel, the first issue, all the way to the end, she looked like the same little girl, and not a lot of people can do that. So when you could draw non-sexualized women, not overly sexualized women, I'm sorry, you're going to diverse your fan base. And what I got was a lot of college fans, and a couple of people had written in saying that in their college, usually psychology class, they asked to take a work of modern literature where you could find out a little more about the creator and analyze it. And I thought I was just writing a very cute story about a little girl and a cross-dressing monkey. Didn't realize how much of yourself you put out there when someone takes a minute to take a look at it and like, all right, well, this is clearly where you're coming from. I'm like, yeah, you're not wrong at all. And it's a little uncomfortable, but yeah, I appreciate you mailing me candy, so.
So if it's about a cross-dressing monkey, then is there something you'd like to, explain on the podcast here? If it's about yourself?
The phrase that sticks out is, everyone is someone's puppet where your master tells you what you have to do, and you have no choice but to suck it up and take it.
That is so much more boring than what I thought.
Way to go. But that's the thing. It's this ability. It's like I was at EternalCon with Ken, and I had a woman sit at my table for what was like 45 minutes telling me stories of her cancer survival and how her niece was going through cancer at the time. And it was just like this incredible moment of shit. The stories are transcending entertainment. And it gets away from this notion of like, comics are just art. It's just fun stories and you just throw them away. It's just this incredible kind of like melding of both Ken and I's abilities into one book is just awesome. Because it gives both, because you see Ken's artwork and there's things in it, because I do little stick figures. They're terrible. I think Ken called them cute or something.
Yeah, there might have been quotes, yeah.
Yeah. Or you look at Ken's artwork, and I just lost my train of thought. Damn it. See?
That's what you get liking Gattaca.
Time to take a shot, I guess, right? Is that the way it works?
I need a shot. What was I saying before?
You were talking about people coming up to you, talking about their cancer survival, personal stories.
So, it combines both Ken and I's abilities to kind of convey emotion through our sections of the storytelling. So when people see Of Devils and Men and they see the artwork, it's just kind of giving them this ability to kind of connect to a story in a way that not that many other books are doing. Right. And I think that to me is the incredible notion, because there's a picture, or there's a panel where the woman is like, there's a woman on the panel and she's staring and you get every bit of emotion to it. And that's, again, it was like my little sister, because my little sister's a feminist. And she said the same thing. Well, she's like, hey, look, it's not a woman with big tits. She's like, cool. Because she loved the story. She's like, I love the story. It's great. Don't turn it into something that's like crappy. It was like, great. You're my 19-year-old little sister telling me what to do. I was like, shut up, you.
Market speaking.
Exactly. And there's a lot of like comics these days where you see like different publishers, especially in the lower tier publishers that have been around for like a couple of decades, and they're creating overly sexualized women all the time. And it's like, okay, guys, we have to, at a certain point, kind of get past this need to kind of like show women with big tits, with tight clothing, and they're always in like these sexualized poses, and kind of get into the down and dirty, nitty gritty of real storytelling that doesn't require gimmicks to kind of get its emotion across and get its story across to the reader. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
It's like, I would love to have daughters, because I'm probably gonna have daughters. That's my joke I always tell people, because I was raised around women my entire life. But it's like, I don't want my daughter 20 years from now looking at A Devil's a Man going, why are the boobs so big?
Where the rest of her clothes?
What happened there, Dad? I'm like, shit.
I'm kind of conflicted, because we get comics from Zenoscope, and their covers are pretty much the epitome of like, all versions of Power Girl, and yet their storylines are pretty damn good.
I was gonna say because one of my good friends, Eric J, draws for Zenoscope, and his covers are I've seen, I think, almost all of them. They're all along the lines where James could hand this to one of his 3 future daughters, and he'd be A-okay with it because she'd be A-okay with it. But yeah, I know Xenoscope does go for TNA for the covers. But I'm talking with Eric about it, because he's the guy who was the first artist for Rex Monday. He's like, it's a struggle. He's like, because they're like, well, couldn't you open the shirt a little more? He's like, that's not what the story is.
Right. It's that fine line between mass-produced marketing and actual art. And I think both, James, you guys hit the nail on the head when you're talking about when it personally connects with someone. Someone can take a look at your book and say, I'm a cancer survivor and I can connect with this story, or I'm a cross-dressing monkey and I can connect with this story. Or the themes within the story. How about that?
Or I'm a stripper. I can connect with this story.
You've created something that is art. There's truth to it, and there's something that connects another human being to you through this art. Where, again, if you just put big boob women on the cover, you're only connecting to 15-year-old men.
Yeah, it detracts from the storytelling. It detracts from getting in more demographics, pulling in more people. There's a system in film called the quadrant system, the 4-quadrant system, which is young and old male, young and old female. And you want to hit at least 3, if not all 4 of those categories. And when you put big-breasted women on it, you lose a majority of the female demographic. Because we've gotten to a point where females are being sick of, women are being sick of being portrayed as like an object of someone's desire. And that's all they are. So it's like, to change that is kind of a really cool idea, to get away from this notion that sex sells all the time. Because that exists in film, it exists in comics, novels, advertising, sure as shit. Where it's like, okay, yes, a beautiful woman you're more inclined to buy something from a beautiful woman than you are some dude like Ken and I. But at a certain point, it's beginning to change. Everything's beginning to shift away from it. Where we're starting to see women go, okay, that's not us. Please stop saying that's us. But it all comes back to, you can have all the gimmicks in the world, but if your story doesn't connect to people, then it doesn't work. It just falls flat and it just kind of falls away.
Yeah.
And like Of Devils and Men, it's this grand story of an apocalypse, of the world that ends and no one has any fucking clue how it happens. But it centers in on 3 people who have suffered from an immense amount of loss and how that loss can affect people. It's like I always have this saying where I tell people that I'm like, everybody knows what it's like to be in love. Not everybody, but a lot of people know what it's like to be in love with someone. But everybody, you can't find a person on this planet, unless they're sociopathic, that does not understand the pain of loss. And that connects to everybody. Everybody's experienced that kind of a connection. And to tell a story, it's like when I submitted the screenplay to a festival, it like clobbered a bunch of people. And a bunch of people came up and like, shit, dude, this is a story that is like, it feels like you found me and put it into a story. And that was one of the greatest compliments I ever got. So it's now to take that principle and put it into comics and go, let's do this and do it in a way that it touches people. And in a way that most people don't expect a comic book to kind of be formatted and have its art, because Ken's artwork is completely different than the majority of the things that's out there. And when you see this, it's like it goes to the polar opposite of what I did with Inheritance, where it like takes it down and dirty and gets into the nitty gritty and goes, okay, let's go violent. Let's do some stuff that everybody's afraid of doing because we're afraid of hurting each other's feelings. It's like, sometimes you need to have your feelings hurt. Sometimes you need to have things challenged. And I think I said this on an interview prior where I said one of the greatest things that could happen for myself, and I'm pretty sure for Ken, is for someone inside of Devils and Men to see these horrible people that exist, these people that are like racist and misogynistic and just violent people, to see themselves in that character and go, I'm that asshole. Shit. Because all horror is a mirror to society.
Yes.
And there's just this, a lot of people are afraid of mirrors, but a lot of people are now going, okay, look at the mirror. We all need to look at the mirror. Our current political environment is perfect for that example. Look in the mirror before you say anything stupid. just look at it. Let's stop what we're doing.
Oh, if only they would listen.
Joe, one would hope. I mean, and that's what like art does that. Art is the number one thing that pushes revolutions forward, so to speak. Besides guns and bombs and all that kind of stuff, because as Marilyn Manson did a song, it says, "We kill strangers so they don't kill the ones we love." That principle exists in this day and age, and it's just like, holy shit. But art, and him saying that, and then what we're saying with Of Devils and Men, kind of pushes a lot of things forward. It pushes people. That's not to say we're going to start a revolution or anything like that, but it's like, you look at all the greatest artists, like Rage Against the Machine, NWA, their art pushed the political theory forward. It kind of started to get people to talk to each other. It's like you look at Django Unchained, and you look at, I just forgot the name of the movie. It was Quentin Tarantino's new movie, Hateful Eight. You look at those movies, and they're challenging racial tensions within the United States now. And then Quentin Tarantino said it beautifully. He's like, this is how people talked. I'm not going to change it so you feel better about yourself. He's like, how about we all start facing the shit that's happened instead of running from it and hiding behind it? Because there's just, art does that phenomenally well. I mean, you look at Django Unchained and people are like, oh, it's violence because it shows slaves being killed, and that's not something I want my kids to see. It's like, your kids, should see that at some point. Should understand what happened. But then they're like, that violence is so bad, and it's the whole movie in there. And then you get to like, when Django actually unchains himself and he's like, starts to shoot people. And he's paying back blood for blood. He's just killing people. And you're like, that's kind of the cathartic violence. Like, you've been saddled with all this kind of horrible stuff that's like, here's a history lesson for you disguised in a movie. And then wham, here's that release of that like pain, because I don't know anybody that cannot watch the scene where I can't remember his name. It was one of the, where Candy feeds the slave to the dogs. I can't find anybody that watched that part and didn't go, oh, shit. Because that shit happened. And that's, again, it's like, I love Quentin Tarantino for doing that, because he's opening doors. He's like, start doing stuff that hurts. Start doing stuff that is not glacial and is not pasteurized. Do stuff that makes each other, that either gets you into a fight with the person sitting next to you. Because that kind of fight and discourse kind of begins a conversation. And it kind of opens people up. And it goes away from like this idea that they're separate from us. Because that's existed for a long time, where we look at blacks or Mexicans or Asians in a different way. Because for the longest time, the system has built itself that way. And now that system is beginning to kind of be ripped apart. And it's like, okay, let's stop all this shit and end it now. And when we do Of Devils and Men, there are people like that. There are characters like that in the story that deal. We face this head on without going, okay, I'm afraid of what people are going to say. It's like, fuck it. If it hurts you, then my advice is learn from it. Figure out why it hurts you, why it made you mad, and go, what is it that this is kind of boiling up out of me? And that usually all comes from art. That comes from like true artistic expression, as opposed to Marvel did Superman, so we can do a character that flies. And instead of a green rock hurting him, it's an alien. It's that kind of stuff pushes people forward. There's a reason Ken's stuff is being utilized in schools. There's a reason the film I did, Into That Good Night, is being used in hospices around the country to help people learn to get away from loss. It's that kind of stuff that, like, what we've done is making Of Devils and Men possible, because that was my ultimate fear for Of Devils and Men, because it's my most personal story. It's a lot of these main characters are all me. You're seeing everything that I went through in that year and a half after my mom died, this hatred, this anger, this having this girlfriend I was dating at the time completely abandon me on the day my mother died. All that anger that was seething inside of me just kind of came out in the story. I was like, this is who I am. Love it, like it, hate it. This is who I am. This is who I was, I should say. And all my art is a very particular way of like therapy, so to speak.
All right. Well, I hope.
Let's end on. Anybody got a joke?
Let's end on a happy note. No.
I need more alcohol for this.
Actually, no. A question we usually like to wrap up on, and I'm sure we've asked James this twice already. So I'll start with Ken. How do you measure success? How do you measure success?
For the ruler.
Just Now, being an artist and being someone that's very fine art looking, I have a very structured mind. So for success, I'm going to quote one of the greatest musical artists of all time, Huey Lewis and the News. Tomorrow is to get it better than today.
All right. That's a good answer.
I got to follow that up.
Yes.
Yeah. And it better be better.
Right, yeah. And you can't use Huey Lewis and the News. You have to think of a different band.
Ooh.
Wait a second. Let me Google this real quick. Let me find some Nick Cave lyrics about success. Pass it off as my own thoughts.
Go for Nickelback. That'll work.
He's a big Creed fan, too.
Oh, yes.
No, FYFC said I was a big Creed fan. Oh, God. You always have the idea of like success because it's been ingrained in every American that millions of dollars, that always is your level of success. But and that certainly existed when I first started writing when I was a young kid. I was like, I'm going to have a mansion. I'm going to have all these like cars and beautiful women everywhere. And as I got older and my mother kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker, the one thing she always wanted to do was to affect somebody to the point where they were emotionally touched by it. And then it kind of like helped with them. And that's always been my measure of success, is that if somebody takes something that I've written and goes, I can connect to this, holy shit, this is great, then I've succeeded. Ken and I did a podcast or a radio interview, and it was Without Your Head. And there was a guy who was messaging the hosts and going, hey, these are my ideas. Well, they're asking Ken and I questions about like success, criticism, people being around you that would kind of tell you that you sucked and stuff. And Ken and I just gave them our advice. And that night I got a message, and it was just like kind of like this cool moment where I was like, holy shit. And this guy's like, hey, great. And then it was like a couple weeks later, it was like a week later, where he actually sent me a friend request. And I was like, okay, great. And you look at his picture, and he's like, here's my scripts. Cause I said, if you want me to take a look at your scripts, just send them to me. I'll take a look at them. And he's like, pardon my spelling on it. I was like, why? He's like, cause I'm disabled. I was like, okay, cool. And I looked at his Facebook page, and I was asking him, I was like, if you don't mind me asking, because my dad's disabled. I was like, what are you disabled for? And he's like, I have cerebral palsy. And he's confined to a wheelchair. And he said something, and then the host echoed it to me where he's like, you and Ken both gave me inspiration because you're both sitting here creating some amazing stuff, and it's not impossible for you, so it sure as shit is not impossible for me. And I remember just like, it took me a couple of days to kind of get over that. I was like, holy shit. That is one of the greatest that's like the greatest thing I've ever gotten. Aside from all these reviews, aside from all these things where people love the books, it's when I see somebody who's not letting a physical impairment get in the way of them creating, and then they look up to Ken and I. That is one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me in my creative journey. I was just like, shit. And it goes back to that regret I have. Is like, why isn't my mom alive so she can sit here and look at this shit? Go, hey, great. But that to me is success in its purest form.
Cool. Good answer.
Yeah.
Wow. So this has been a real heavy episode. So real quick, Ken, where can people find your books and find you online?
I have a new site up. It's kenknutson.com. So go ahead and try and spell that. But, I have public profiles on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can find me being the loudest cheerer of any Keanu Reeves movie.
No, second loudest. I'll be screaming out like those clockers in the audience. Like, ah! I think we spent like 30 minutes in an interview talking nothing but Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, if someone wasn't a fan, and we may have belligerently forced her.
I'm a Keanu Reeves completist, so don't worry about that.
Are you the Rachel Weisz fan too?
No, I am. That's me.
They're both in an amazing DC movie.
Constantine.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And if you go one more step, there's Kevin Bacon. So.
Oh my god.
Oh, the guy from Bush is in there. That's close enough.
James, where can people currently get Inheritance?
My new site is coming. My new site's up. It's Schumacher3, spelled like my name, the number 3.com. So that's up and running. The new store will be up in about a week and a half. and then Inheritance will be sold through the store.
All right.
And we've already got a long list for that one.
Or you can give him a call, starting with this number.
Starting with the number of... Jesus.
Well, just give them your address and people can show up there and get it. How's that?
Yeah, we can.
But I'm super excited about bringing Inheritance back up because after what happened 2 months ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to take my time bringing everything up, and then like the new designs of the logos, the new designs of like putting together the books. It's like, okay, great. So now it's like, okay, I can drive people to a store that is actually not an exterior store like Etsy. So okay, great. And I've had a lot of people messaging me like it's. Not a day goes by where I don't get an inbox message from someone going, when can I get Inheritance? And I'm like, yeah, it's coming soon. I guarantee it. Because I literally built, and I say built, as in drag and drop shit into WordPress, the entire site myself, because I was like, I could do this. It's actually not so bad. But the new store will be up in about a week and a half, and that'll be Schumacher3.com/store. And then Inheritance will be inside of that.
Cool. Definitely we'll have to keep an eye out for that because
Woo!
We won't mention what happened 2 months ago. I think we went over that.
Oh yeah. I tell people, I'm like, everybody went their way. They wanted to go do what they did, so they went and did what they did. It's great. I haven't been happier. I don't have any ill will. And it was like, great, cool. I'm happy. It was awesome. I mean, I went to EternalCon and ended up spending the first day of EternalCon and a broken down car in the middle of fucking Manhattan. That was fun.
I don't think that would be fun, but hey, you know.
So, it was a nightmare. And then I spent like 17 hours inside of Denver International Airport. I was like, oh god, this is terrible. It was fun.
Well, that could be fun. Is there a bar there?
There was no bar, so it was sad. But they kind of got mad because I was like, looking around. I kept asking them, like, because you have all these conspiracy theories where they're like, dude, underneath the Denver International Airport, there's an alien base. I was like, hey, is there an alien base here? Can I see it? I've got fake government clearance that I just wrote on this napkin at the bar over here.
Just flash at them and say it's psychic paper.
Oh, wait a minute. Denver. So that's in Colorado. So there should have been, a pot store right in the airport, right?
Oh, now.
I was hoping. That would have been nice. I even tried to think of, like, I just met Ken Newton. Does that get me in there? But like, as much as we like the books.
That could make this 17 hours feel like 53 hours. It's perfect.
It was, I remember I texted Ken, because I texted Ken, I was like, alright, Facebooked him, I was like, shittiest flight ever. Because I was on Frontier Airlines. Don't fly Frontier. Like, it was like they took metal seats and wrapped, like, cloth over it. It was like,
So, a new sponsor to announce, Frontier Airlines. Oh, wait.
Frontier! It was terrible. It was like 17 hours, and the worst part was they're like, oh, we have an earlier flight. I was like, cool, can I get on? They're like, $500. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, $500. They were charging $5 for a bag of peanuts.
Yeah.
I was like, no. But I came out of a badass con, made a bunch of new friends, and then ended up working with Ken. So I was like, yeah, that was all worth it. It was perfect.
Speaking of cons, are you guys? Ken, you said you're going to be at New York Comic Con. Are you guys going to be anywhere else before the end of the year?
I have this upcoming September 7th. I'm going to be in Monrovia, California, which is like a suburb of Los Angeles, for Action on Film. They're holding a panel for me, like a 2-hour-long panel.
Oh, cool!
And it's like filled up. It's really kind of cool. But they're holding that, so I'll be down in LA on the 7th. Oh no, sorry, the 2nd through the 8th, and then I'm going to be at the Covalite International Film Festival from September 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Cool.
So,
I feel like this is the beginning of the At Midnight, where you list off all the places we're doing stand-up. I just wrapped up the In Beyond Con this past Saturday, but outside of New York Comic Con, which is 4 days of awesomeness, I don't have anything else on my plate just yet.
All right. What's your table number?
No table number, but I will be using epicprops.com as a home base. So they're on the main floor.
You're on the floor?
Yep.
I will find a way to get up there. I'm going to be in Artist Alley, so.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, epicprops.com. It's right by one of the main stairs, so.
I'll be roaming around. I'll get to see you.
I'm sad. You guys all get to go there, and I get to stay here.
Well, considering how they did... Yeah. Considering how they did tickets, it's a miracle any of us are getting to go. Technically, actually, it's a miracle I'm getting to go because I'm the only non-vendor here. But
you got to know people.
Are you guys heading as like a podcast or?
No. I'm helping a friend out in Artist Alley, and he bought tickets, but he's going to walk around with a recorder and bug people for interviews like Ken.
I'm the roaming reporter. Fear me.
Oh, just bring beer. Ken loves beer. Bring anything.
Okay. So stick a beer and the microphone in your face, and I should be good for an interview. All right, I'm good.
It's good to have one.
Yes. So how'd you get interviews? I seduce people with beer. It's like, hey, I'll give you a shot of like this whiskey here for an interview.
That's also how he gets dates. Hold on.
Hey, oh.
All right. Well, on that note, boys and girls, as we say,
the interview's over.
Yes.
Ken and I can tell you more stories from my life.
Come on, we're already
awesome.
We'll have to have you guys back on that. How's that?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. All right, so boys and girls, as we say each and every week, don't let your cape get caught in the door. Have a good week.